The great hall of the Galactic Council was cold. It was always cold. The alien species who built it came from a frozen world, and they liked to remind everyone that they were in charge. Tejo stood in the center of the room, his hands bound behind his back. He wore his ambassador uniform, but it was torn now. They had not been gentle when they arrested him. Around him sat the 12 members of the council. They were different species from different worlds, but they all looked at him the same way. Like he was nothing. Like he was less than the dirt on their shoes. Council leader Vaughn sat at the highest seat. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 eyes that never blinked. His species, the Malari, had ruled the council for 300 years. They believed they were better than everyone else. They believed humans were the lowest of all. "Human Ambassador Tejo," Vaughn said. His voice was flat and cold. "You have been found guilty of espionage against the Galactic Council. You have stolen military secrets. You have shared them with your primitive world. The punishment is death." Tejo lifted his head. He was not afraid. He had done nothing wrong, and he knew it. The evidence against him was fake. Everyone in this room knew it was fake. But the council did not care about truth. They cared about power. "I am innocent," Tejo said. His voice was calm. "Earth has been a peaceful member of the galactic community for 50 years. We have followed every rule. We have paid every tax. We have never asked for war. I have stolen nothing." Vaughn made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Your innocence does not matter, human. Your species has grown too confident. You build ships. You expand your colonies. You think you are equal to us." He leaned forward. "You are not equal. You never will be. This execution will remind your people of their place." Tejo understood then. This was never about espionage. This was about fear. The council was afraid of humanity. They had watched humans grow from a small, ignored species into something bigger, something that might one day challenge them. So they decided to crush that growth before it could continue. "If you kill me," Tejo said, "you will regret it. Earth will not forget." "Earth will do nothing," Vaughn replied. "Your military is weak. Your technology is old. What can you possibly do against the greatest powers in the galaxy?" Tejo smiled. It was a small smile, but it made several council members uncomfortable. "You do not know us. You have never tried to know us. That is your mistake." Vaughn waved his hand. "Enough talking. Begin the execution." 2 guards stepped forward. They were large creatures with thick armor covering their bodies. They grabbed Tejo's arms and forced him to his knees. One of them held a weapon to his head. It was a neural disruptor. It would destroy his brain instantly. There would be no pain, but there would also be no chance of survival. Tejo closed his eyes. He thought of his wife, Yuna. She was back on Earth, waiting for him to come home. They had been married for 12 years. She was the kindest person he had ever known. She made him laugh even when everything seemed dark. He wished he could see her one more time. He thought of his daughter, Sumin. She was only 8 years old. She loved to draw pictures of spaceships and aliens. She wanted to be an explorer when she grew up. She wanted to see every star in the galaxy. Now she would grow up without a father. "I love you," Tejo whispered. "Both of you, forever." The guard pressed the trigger. On Earth, Yuna sat in their small apartment in Seoul. It was evening, and the city lights glowed outside the window. She was watching the news on her tablet, waiting for updates about Tejo's trial. The government had told her not to worry. They said they were negotiating. They said everything would be fine. Then the broadcast changed. The council was showing the trial live. They wanted everyone in the galaxy to see it. They wanted to send a message. Yuna watched as her husband stood before those alien leaders. She watched as they called him a criminal. She watched as he defended himself with dignity and courage. Then she watched as they killed him. The neural disruptor flashed. Taiho's body fell to the ground. He did not move again. Yuan could not breathe. She could not think. The tablet fell from her hands and hit the floor. The screen cracked, but the broadcast kept playing. Vorn was speaking again, saying something about human arrogance, but Yuna could not hear the words. All she could hear was silence. A terrible, empty silence that filled every part of her soul. Her husband was dead. The man she loved was dead, and they had killed him for nothing. Su-Min came running into the room. Mom, what's wrong? Why are you crying? Yuna grabbed her daughter and held her tight. She did not know what to say. How do you tell a child that her father is never coming home? How do you explain that the galaxy is cruel and unfair? How do you tell her that monsters exist, and they wear fancy robes and sit on golden thrones? Your father, Yuna whispered. Your father was very brave. He was the bravest man I ever knew. Su-Min looked at her mother's face. She was young, but she understood. Children always understand more than adults think. Is Daddy gone? She asked. Yuna nodded. Tears fell down her face. Yes, baby. Daddy is gone. They held each other and cried. Within an hour, the news spread across Earth. Every screen showed the execution. Every voice spoke about what the council had done. At first, there was shock. People could not believe it. Ambassador Taiho was known and respected. He had worked for peace. He had tried to build bridges between humanity and the galaxy. And the council had murdered him like he was nothing. Then the shock turned to anger. In New York, people filled the streets. They shouted and waved signs. They demanded justice. In Beijing, factory workers stopped their machines and marched to government buildings. In Mumbai, students burned images of council leader Vorn. In London, in Paris, in Cairo, in Tokyo, in every city on every continent, humanity roared with rage. The president of the United Earth Government stood in her office in Geneva. Her name was Sun Yi, and she had led Earth through 15 years of peace. She had believed in diplomacy. She had believed that humanity could find its place in the galaxy through patience and cooperation. Now she stood at her window and watched the crowds below. They were not asking for patience anymore. Her advisors surrounded her. Military generals, political leaders, scientists and diplomats. They all talked at once, arguing about what to do. Some wanted to wait. Some wanted to negotiate. Some wanted to file complaints with the galactic courts. Sun Yi raised her hand, and everyone went quiet. They executed an innocent man, she said. Her voice was soft but firm. They did it publicly. They did it to humiliate us. They did it to show the galaxy that humans are weak and worthless. She turned to face her advisors. Are we weak and worthless? No, Madam President, the generals answered. Then we will show them who we are. Sun Yi walked to her desk and pressed a button. A holographic display appeared, showing Earth's military forces. For 50 years, humanity had pretended to be harmless. They had hidden their true strength. They had built ships in secret facilities on the dark side of the moon. They had developed weapons that the Council could not imagine. They had prepared for the day when peace would fail. That day had come. Activate Protocol Omega, Sun Yi commanded. Call back all our people from Council space. Recall our ambassadors. Close our borders. And prepare the fleet. Her Secretary of Defense stepped forward. Madam President, if we go to war, millions will die. Perhaps billions. Are you sure? Sun Yi thought of Taiho. She had met him many times. He was a good man. A kind man. He had believed in the best of everyone, even aliens who treated him like garbage. And they had killed him anyway. They made their choice, Sun-Yi said. Now they will live with the consequences. 6 hours later, every human in Council space received an emergency message. It told them to return to Earth immediately. It told them that war was coming. Ships filled with refugees began streaming toward human territory. The Council noticed and laughed. They thought humans were running away. They thought their little execution had worked perfectly. They had no idea what was really happening. In the deep darkness beyond Neptune, something stirred. Massive shipyards that had been hidden for decades suddenly came alive. Lights turned on. Engines started. Workers who had trained their whole lives for this moment took their positions. The first fleet of Earth emerged from the shadows. It was not the weak, outdated collection of ships that the Council expected. It was something else entirely. 300 warships, built with technology that humanity had kept secret. Armed with weapons that the galaxy had never seen. Crewed by men and women who were ready to fight. Fleet Admiral Sung-Ho stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Seoul. He was an old soldier who had waited his whole career for this day. He had known it would come. Humans always hoped for peace, but they prepared for war. That was their nature. That was their strength. All ships report ready, his executive officer said. Seung-Ho nodded. He looked at the stars through the main window. Somewhere out there, the Council was celebrating. They thought they had won. They thought humanity would cry and beg and do nothing. They were wrong. Set course for Council space, Sung-Ho ordered. Maximum speed. The fleet moved forward into the darkness. The engines made no sound in the vacuum of space, but if they could have made a sound, it would have been the sound of thunder. The sound of a storm coming. The sound of humanity's rage. Back on Earth, Yuna put her daughter to bed. Su-Min had finally left. The Council was celebrating. In the great halls of their capital world, alien diplomats drank expensive wines and laughed about the human execution. They called it a great victory. They said it would keep humanity quiet for generations. They patted each other on their backs and congratulated themselves for being so clever. Council leader Vorn sat on his throne and accepted praise from everyone who came before him. His 4 eyes watched them all with satisfaction. For years, he had worried about the human problem. They bred too fast. They learned too quickly. They asked too many questions. Now that problem was solved. One dead ambassador and the entire species would remember their place. The humans have recalled all their people from our space, one of his advisors reported. Their ships are fleeing back to their territory. It seems they are scared. Of course they are scared, Vorn replied. They should be. We have shown them what happens when they forget who their masters are. The celebration continued for 3 days. During that time, Vorn received reports about strange activity in human space. Their borders were closed. Their communication channels were silent. Ships that tried to enter their territory were turned away. Some advisors thought this was strange. Some thought it might be dangerous. But Vorn dismissed their concerns. They are sulking like children, he said. Let them hide in their little corner of the galaxy. When they are ready to apologize, they will come crawling back. On the 4th day, something unexpected happened. A single human ship appeared at the edge of Council space. It was not a warship. It was a diplomatic vessel, small and unarmed. It sent a message to the Council, requesting permission to speak with Vorn directly. Vorn was amused. Already they come to beg, he said. Bring them to me. I want to see the fear in their eyes. The ship was escorted to the Council's capital world. When it landed, only one human stepped out. He was tall and strong, with gray hair and a face that showed no emotion. He wore a military uniform covered with medals. His name was Sung-ho, and he was the fleet admiral of Earth's forces. The council guards surrounded him and led him to the Great Hall. Sung-ho walked calmly, looking at everything around him. He noticed the expensive decorations. He noticed the alien species watching from the shadows. He noticed how confident they all looked. He noticed, and he remembered. Vorn sat on his throne and looked down at the human. "You are not an ambassador," he observed. "You are a soldier." "I am," Sung-ho replied. "I came to deliver a message from the United Earth government." "A message?" Vorn leaned back. "Very well. Speak your message. Apologize for your species, and perhaps we will be merciful." Sung-ho did not apologize. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. The guards raised their weapons, but Sung-ho was not attacking. He was projecting a hologram. The hologram showed a man's face. It was Taeho, the ambassador they had executed. "This man was innocent," Sung-ho said. "You knew he was innocent. You killed him anyway. You killed him to send a message to humanity. Now we have a message for you." Vorn's eyes narrowed. "What message?" "Surrender the 12 council members who voted for his execution. Surrender them to Earth within 7 days. They will stand trial for murder. If they are found guilty, they will be punished according to human law." Sung-ho paused. "If you refuse, Earth will consider this an act of war, and we will respond accordingly." For a moment, there was silence. Then Vorn laughed. It was a cold, cruel laugh that echoed through the hall. The other council members joined him. Soon everyone was laughing at the human standing before them. "You threaten us?" Vorn said. "You? Humans? Your species is nothing. Your ships are garbage. Your weapons are toys. We have ruled this galaxy for 300 years. We have crushed 1,000 rebellions. What makes you think you are any different?" Sung-ho did not laugh. His face remained calm. "You do not know us." "I know enough," Vorn replied. "I know that humans are weak. I know that you have no allies. I know that if we wanted, we could destroy your entire species in a single month." He stood from his throne and walked toward Sung-ho. He was much taller than the human, and he used his height to intimidate. "Go home, little soldier. Tell your leaders that we reject their foolish demands. Tell them that if they cause any trouble, we will burn Earth to ashes." Sung-ho looked up at Vorn. He did not seem afraid. "You have 7 days," he said. "After that, there will be no more warnings." Then he turned and walked away. The council let him go. They wanted him to return to Earth with their message. They wanted humanity to know the resistance was hopeless. They were so confident in their power that they never considered any other possibility. That night, Vorn called a meeting of his military commanders. He wanted to make sure they were ready to punish humanity if necessary. The commanders arrived quickly, eager to show their strength. "The humans are making noise," Vorn told them. "It is probably nothing, but I want you to prepare a fleet anyway. Something small. Enough to destroy a few of their outer colonies. That should quiet them down." General Throck, the commander of the Malari Navy, nodded. "I will prepare 50 ships. That should be more than enough. Human defenses are primitive. Our scanners show they have less than 100 military vessels." "Good," Vorn said. "If they do anything stupid, destroy their colonies. Leave Earth alone for now. I want them to suffer slowly." The commanders left to prepare. They gathered their ships and trained their crews. They studied maps of human space and picked their targets. They were calm and professional. They had done this many times before. Other species had tried to resist the council. All of them had failed. Humans would be no different. Meanwhile, Sung-ho returned to the First Fleet. His ship docked with the Soul, and he walked straight to the command center. His officers were waiting for him. They looked tense and eager. "What did they say, Admiral?" his executive officer asked. "They laughed," Sung-ho replied. "They rejected our demands. They threatened to burn Earth." The officers exchanged glances. Some of them looked angry. Some looked scared. All of them understood what this meant. "Then it is war," the executive officer said quietly. "It is war," Sung-ho confirmed. He walked to the main display and activated the tactical map. It showed the positions of all human ships and all known Council forces. But not the kind of war they expect. "We will not attack their main fleets. Not yet. We will hit them where it hurts most. Their pride." He pointed to a cluster of stars on the outer edge of Council space. "These are the Voral colonies. They belong to the Malari. They produce most of their luxury goods, their finest wines, their most expensive metals, their rarest foods. The Malari elite depend on these colonies for their comfortable lives. We attack the colonies?" An officer asked. "We take them," Sung-ho said. "We capture them intact. We show the galaxy that human ships can go anywhere, do anything, and the Council cannot stop us." The plan was bold. It was dangerous. The Voral colonies were well defended by orbital stations and patrol ships. But Sung-ho had spent years studying Council tactics. He knew their weaknesses. He knew they were overconfident. He knew they underestimated humanity. "Commander Hannah," he said. A young woman stepped forward. She was small but fierce, with sharp eyes and a reputation for brilliant tactics. "You will lead the assault. Take the second strike group, 60 ships. Fast and quiet." Hannah saluted. "I will not fail you, Admiral. I know you will not." Sung-ho looked at her with something like fatherly pride. She reminded him of his own daughter, who had died in an accident 10 years ago. He had channeled his grief into his work. Now he channeled his rage. "Move quickly. Hit hard. Show them who we are." Hannah left to prepare her fleet. The second strike group was made up of the fastest ships in the human navy. They were called Shadowrunners because they could move through space without being detected. Their stealth technology was the most advanced in the galaxy, though the Council did not know it. For 2 days, the fleet prepared. They loaded weapons, checked systems, and said goodbye to loved ones. Everyone knew this was the beginning of something terrible. Everyone knew that many of them might not come back. But no one complained. No one hesitated. They remembered Tae-ho. They remembered how the Council had laughed while killing him. That memory burned in their hearts like fire. On Earth, President Sun-yi addressed the world. She stood before cameras and spoke in a calm, strong voice. "Citizens of Earth," she said. "4 days ago, our ambassador was murdered by the Galactic Council. He was innocent. Everyone knows he was innocent. The Council killed him because they wanted to remind us that we are weak. They wanted to show the galaxy that humans can be stepped on without consequence." She paused and looked directly into the camera. "They were wrong. We are not weak. We have never been weak. For 50 years, we pretended to be harmless because we wanted peace. We built our strength in secret because we hoped we would never need it. But now that hope is gone. The Council has chosen war, and we will give them war." The broadcast was seen by billions. On Earth, people gathered in public squares and watched together. Some cried. Some cheered. All of them felt the same thing. A strange mixture of fear and determination. They were about to fight the greatest power in the galaxy. They might lose everything, but at least they would fight Dot in her apartment in S. The Varl system was beautiful. 3 planets circled a golden star, and each planet was covered with farms and cities and forests. The Malari had spent 200 years building this place. They called it the Jewel of the empire. It provided the finest goods for the richest families on the council. Homeworld. Governor Malik stood on the balcony of his palace and looked at the peaceful sky. He was old and fat and comfortable. He had ruled this system for 30 years, and nothing bad had ever happened. The thought of danger seemed impossible. The council's power was absolute. No one would dare attack them. His assistant rushed onto the balcony. "Governor, our sensors have detected something strange." "Strange?" Malix turned slowly. He did not like being disturbed during his morning tea. "What kind of strange?" "We are not sure. There are shadows moving at the edge of the system. Our computers cannot identify them." Malix waved his hand dismissively. "Probably just asteroids. Or sensor ghosts. There is nothing to worry about." But he was wrong. Commander Hana and her fleet emerged from hiding like ghosts appearing from the shadows. 60 human ships suddenly became visible on every scanner in the system. They moved fast, faster than anything the Malari had ever seen. Within minutes, they surrounded the main defense station. "This is Commander Hana of the United Earth Navy." She broadcast on all channels. "You are surrounded. Surrender immediately, and no one will be harmed. Resist, and you will be destroyed." The Malari officers on the defense station could not believe what they were seeing. Human ships? Here? It was impossible. Humans did not have this technology. Humans could not move this fast. Their scanners must be broken. The station commander, a young officer named Torek, tried to contact the council homeworld. "Priority message," he shouted. "We are under attack. Repeat, we are under attack by human forces." But the message did not go through. Human ships had already blocked all long-range communications. The Varro system was cut off from the rest of the galaxy. No one could call for help. No one could warn anyone. "They are jamming us," Torak's communication officer cried. "We cannot reach anyone." Torak looked at his tactical display. 60 human ships surrounded his station. He had only 12 patrol vessels and a handful of defense platforms. The numbers were bad enough. But there was something else. Something worse. The human ships were not like anything in the Council's records. They were sleek and dark, covered with weapons that Torak did not recognize. Their engines burned with strange energy. Their movements were precise and coordinated. These were not the primitive ships that the Council expected. These were predators. "What do we do?" one of his officers asked. Torak thought for a moment. He could fight. He could die with honor. But what would that accomplish? His station would be destroyed. His crew would be killed. And the humans would take the system anyway. "Stand down," he ordered. "All ships, stand down. We surrender." His officers looked at him with shock and shame. Malari warriors were not supposed to surrender. But Torak knew that survival was more important than pride. Someone had to tell the Council what was happening here. Someone had to warn them. Commander Hana received the surrender with satisfaction. Her ships moved into position around the station and the 3 planets. Human Marines transported over and took control of key facilities. The Malari soldiers were disarmed but not harmed. The civilians were told to stay calm and continue their normal lives. "This is not a conquest," Hana announced to the system's population. "This is justice. Your council killed an innocent man. Now your council will pay the price. Cooperate with us, and you will be treated fairly. Resist, and you will regret it." Most of the population did not resist. They were scared and confused. They had never seen humans fight before. They had always been told that humans were weak and cowardly. Now they watched human soldiers march through their streets with discipline and confidence. The stories they had believed were obviously lies. Governor Malix was arrested in his palace. He was brought before Commander Hannah in chains, still wearing his expensive robes. He tried to threaten her. He tried to bribe her. He tried to beg. "Please," he whimpered. "I am an important person. The council will not allow this insult. They will come with 1,000 ships and destroy you all." Hannah looked at him with cold eyes. "Let them come. We are ready." Malix was taken to a prison cell. His palace was converted into a military headquarters. His wine collection was given to the human soldiers as a reward. They drank it that night and laughed about how the mighty Malari had fallen. The news of the Varl system's capture took 3 days to reach the council homeworld. A single patrol ship had escaped the blockade and made the long journey back. When it arrived, the pilot stumbled into the council chambers and collapsed. "The humans," he gasped. "The humans have taken Varl. 60 ships. Advanced technology. They came out of nowhere." Warren did not believe it at first. It had to be a mistake. Humans could not have 60 advanced ships. Humans did not have stealth technology. This was some kind of trick or lie. But then more reports came. Other systems on the edge of council space reported seeing human fleets. Some were attacked. Some surrendered before a shot was fired. In just 1 week, humanity had captured or blockaded a dozen. Council systems thought the celebration that had filled the council halls was replaced with fear. General Throck stood before the council with a grim expression. "We underestimated them," he admitted. "The humans have been hiding their true strength. Their ships are more advanced than we knew. Their tactics are more sophisticated. This is not going to be an easy war." "Then make it easy," Vorn snapped. "Send the Grand Fleet. Crush them with overwhelming force." "The Grand Fleet is spread across the galaxy," Throck replied. "It will take months to gather it in one place. In the meantime, the humans will continue their attacks. We need a different strategy." "What strategy?" Vorn demanded. "We must negotiate. Offer them something. Buy time until our fleet is ready." Vorn's 4 eyes burned with anger. "Negotiate? With humans? Never. They are insects. We do not negotiate with insects. We step on them. Then we will lose more systems," Throck said quietly. "The humans know our weaknesses. They are attacking supply lines and communication hubs. They are destroying our ability to coordinate. If this continues, the entire outer region will fall." The other council members listened with growing fear. They had never faced anything like this. For 300 years, the council had been the dominant power in the galaxy. Other species challenged them sometimes, but those challenges were always crushed quickly. This was different. The humans were not attacking head-on. They were dancing around, striking where the council was weak, then vanishing before retaliation could arrive. On the captured planet of Varl Prime, Commander Hannah reviewed the latest reports. Her forces had taken control of all 3 planets with minimal casualties. The population was calm. The economy was still running. She had proven that humans could fight without destroying everything. "Commander," her tactical officer said, "we are receiving a priority message from Admiral Sungho." Hannah activated the secure channel. Sungho's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired but proud. "Excellent work, Commander," he said. "The Council is in chaos. Their response has been slow and confused. You have proven that our strategy works." "Thank you, Admiral. What are our next orders?" "Continue pushing toward the Council homeworld. Take more systems. Free more people. Show the galaxy that the Council can be beaten." Sungho paused. "But be careful. The Council will eventually gather their strength. When they do, the real battle will begin." Hannah nodded. She understood. This was just the beginning. The easy victories would not last forever. Eventually, the Council would stop underestimating humanity. Eventually, They would fight back with everything they had. "We will be ready," she said. Back on Earth, Yuna completed her basic training and was assigned to a medical ship. The ship was called the Mercy, and it followed the combat fleets to provide care for the wounded. She was one of 200 medics on board, all of them trained to save lives in the middle of war. Her supervisor was an old doctor named Dae-Young. He had served in the Earth military for 40 years, treating everything from training accidents to combat wounds. He had never seen real war, but he knew what was coming. "This will be hard," he told Yuna on her first day. "People will die. Good people. Young people. You will see things that will stay with you forever. Are you prepared for that?" Yuna thought of her husband. She thought of the moment she watched him die on that screen. She thought of the empty place in her heart that would never be filled. "I am prepared," she said. "I want to help. I want to make sure that every soldier who fights for us has a chance to come home." Dae-Young nodded. He saw the determination in her eyes. He saw the pain that fueled it. He had seen that look before in other soldiers, in other wars. It was the look of someone who had lost everything and had nothing left to fear. "Then welcome to the Mercy," he said. "May you never be too busy." The war continued. Week after week, human fleets struck at Council targets. They captured colonies and space stations. They destroyed supply convoys and communication relays. They freed alien species who had suffered under Council rule for centuries. Some of those species even joined the human side, bringing their ships and soldiers to the fight. The galaxy began to change. The Council's grip was loosening. Their allies were questioning. The Devastation fleet emerged from hyperspace near Earth's moon. 300 warships, each one massive and powerful, filled the black sky with their presence. Council leader Vorn himself had come to watch the destruction. He stood on the bridge of the flagship, the Conqueror, and smiled as Earth appeared on his view screen. "There it is," he said. "The birthplace of the human plague. Today we burn it clean." His officers prepared their weapons. Long-range missiles were loaded. Energy cannons were charged. Fighter squadrons were launched. The Council fleet moved toward Earth with the confidence of a predator approaching helpless prey. Then they saw what was waiting for them. The first fleet of Earth was assembled in orbit around their homeworld. Not just the ships that the Council had seen before, but the entire human military. 500 warships arranged in perfect defensive formations. Behind them floated massive orbital defense platforms, each one bristling with weapons. And beyond those, closer to the planet, millions of automated defense drones filled the space like a cloud of steel insects. Vorn's smile faded. "What is this?" General Throck checked his scanners with growing alarm. "They have more ships than we expected. Much more. And those defense platforms, our intelligence has no record of them." "Then our intelligence was wrong," Vorn snapped. "It does not matter. We still have the finest ships in the galaxy." "Attack!" The Council fleet surged forward. Missiles flew across the void. Energy beams lit up the darkness. The battle for Earth had begun. Admiral Sung-ho stood on the bridge of the Soul and watched the enemy come. He felt calm. He had trained his whole life for this moment. He had studied every tactic, every strategy, every trick that could win a battle like this. He was ready. "All ships, hold formation," he ordered. "Let them come to us. Draw them into range of our defense platforms." The human ships did not charge forward. They waited, patient and disciplined. The Council fleet closed the distance, still confident, still believing they were the hunter's dot. Then the defense platforms opened fire. Massive energy beams lanced out from Earth's orbital defenses. Each beam was powerful enough to cut through a mountain. When they hit the Council ships, those ships simply ceased to exist. In the first minute of the battle, 50 Council warships were destroyed. What is happening? Vorn screamed. Where is this firepower coming from? The answer was simple. For 50 years, humanity had pretended to be weak. They had built their defenses in secret, hiding them underground and behind the moon. They had prepared for this exact scenario, a massive enemy fleet attacking their homeworld. And now all of those preparations were paying off. The Council fleet tried to retreat, but it was too late. Human ships moved to surround them, cutting off their escape routes. Commander Hannah led the second strike group in a flanking maneuver that caught the enemy by surprise. Her ships tore through the Council formation, destroying or disabling everything in their path. They are running. Hannah shouted over the comm. Push harder. Don't let them escape. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, 230 Council ships were destroyed. The rest surrendered or fled into hyperspace. The Conqueror itself was crippled, drifting helplessly near Mars. Vorn was captured by human marines who boarded his ship and found him hiding in a storage closet. You cannot do this to me, Vorn hissed as they dragged him away. I am the Council leader. I am the most powerful being in the galaxy. The Marine sergeant looked at him without expression. Not anymore. On Earth, people poured into the streets to celebrate. They had survived. Their homeworld was safe. The enemy had come with all their power, and humanity had defeated them. Church bells rang in every city. Fireworks lit up the sky. Strangers hugged each other and cried with joy. But the war was not over. The Council still controlled hundreds of systems. Their grand fleet was still gathering somewhere in the galaxy. The victory at Earth was important, but it was not the end. President Sumi addressed her people the next morning. We have won a great battle, she said. But the war continues. We cannot rest until justice is done. We cannot stop until Teho's murder is answered. We will take the fight to the Council homeworld. We will end this war where it began. The Second Fleet was assembled for the invasion. 200 warships, plus transport ships carrying 500,000 soldiers. They would cross the galaxy and attack the heart of the Council's power. It was the most ambitious military operation in human history. Yuna was assigned to one of the transport ships. A medical unit would follow the invasion force and treat the wounded. She stood on the observation deck and watched as the fleet prepared to depart. Beside her was Dae Young, the old doctor who had become her mentor. Are you scared? He asked. No, Yuna replied. I am ready. Good. Dae Young patted her shoulder. Remember, our job is to save lives, not to take them. When the fighting gets intense, it is easy to lose sight of that. Stay focused on your purpose. Yuna nodded. She understood. But she also had another purpose. A personal one. She wanted to look into Vorn's eyes. She wanted to stand before the creature who had murdered her husband. She wanted him to know that his victim had a name, had a family, had a life that mattered. The fleet jumped into hyperspace. The journey to the Council homeworld would take 3 weeks. During that time, Yuna trained with her medical team and tried to prepare for what was coming. She studied alien anatomy so she could treat wounded prisoners. She practiced emergency surgery in a moving vehicle. She learned how to work while explosions shook the ground. The other medics came from all over Earth. There was Gaimwon, a young woman from Bizin who had joined because her brother was a Marine. There was Minki, a quiet man from Daegu who had been a nurse for 20 years. There was Yumbai, a cheerful girl from Incheon, who kept everyone's spirits up with her jokes and songs. They became a family during those 3 weeks. They shared stories about their homes and their dreams. They talked about what they would do when the war was over. Ji-won wanted to open a restaurant. Minki wanted to travel the galaxy and see new worlds. Yumbai wanted to become a famous singer. Yuna did not talk about her plans. She did not know if she had any plans beyond the war. Her life had been broken when Taeho died. She was still trying to find the pieces. The fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Council system. The homeworld was visible in the distance, a gray and brown planet surrounded by massive space stations. It was heavily defended, but not as heavily as it used to be. Most of the Council's military had been destroyed or scattered. What remained was a shadow of its former power. Admiral Sung-ho addressed the fleet before the assault. "This is the moment we have been fighting for. The Council killed our ambassador to send us a message. Today we send them a message back. Attack." The Second Fleet surged forward. Human ships engaged the Council's remaining defenders. The battle was fierce but short. Without their Grand Fleet, without their best commanders, the Council could not stop the human advance. Within hours, the path to the homeworld was clear. The invasion transports descended through the atmosphere. They landed outside the capital city, a massive metropolis where billions of aliens lived. The streets were empty. The civilians had fled or hidden in shelters. Only the military remained, forming defensive lines around key buildings. Yuna's transport landed in a secured zone behind the front lines. She and her team set up a field hospital in a captured factory. Within minutes, the first wounded began arriving. "Help me here," Ji-won shouted. A Marine was carried in on a stretcher, his leg badly burned by an energy weapon. Yuna rushed over and began treatment. The hours blurred together. Patient after patient came through the doors. Some were human. Some were alien prisoners who needed medical care. Yuna treated them all the same. Pain was pain. Suffering was suffering. She did not care about species or politics. She cared about saving lives. Outside, the battle raged. Human forces pushed deeper into the city. They captured government buildings and military bases. They found prisons full of political prisoners who had been locked up for speaking against the Council. They freed them all and gave them food and medicine. The Council's resistance crumbled. Without Vorn to lead them, the remaining officials fought among themselves. Some wanted to surrender. Some wanted to fight to the death. Some just wanted to escape. The chaos helped the human advance. On the third day of the invasion, human forces reached the Great Hall where Taeho had been executed. They found it empty. The thrones where the Council members had sat were abandoned. The holographic displays were dark. The building was just a shell now, a monument to power that had vanished. Commander Hana walked through the hall with a small squad of Marines. She stood in the center, where Taeho had stood when he died, and looked around at the empty seats. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it." Her comm crackled. "Commander, we have news. The remaining Council members have surrendered. They are requesting peace talks." Hannah smiled. It was a tired smile, but a real one. "Tell Admiral Sung-ho, and tell the President. This war is almost over." But not quite over. In the prison ship orbiting Earth, Vorn sat in his cell and stared at the wall. He had been stripped of his fine robes. He wore a simple prisoner uniform now. His 4 eyes were dull with defeat. A guard. The trial of Council leader Vorn took place on Earth, in the Great Hall of the United Nations building in Geneva. The entire galaxy watched. Every species, every world, every citizen who had access to a screen saw the creature who had started this war brought before human justice. Vorm was not alone. The 11 other Council members who had voted for Taeho's execution sat beside him. They wore gray prisoner uniforms. Their hands were bound. Their eyes showed various mixtures of fear, defiance, and resignation. The judges were human, but the audience was galactic. Diplomats from 100 worlds filled the observation galleries. Journalists from every major news network broadcast every moment. This was not just a trial. It was a statement. It was a message to the entire universe about what happened when you underestimated humanity. President Sun-Yi did not attend the trial herself. She watched from her office, surrounded by her advisors. She had more important work to do. The war was over, but the peace needed to be built. New treaties needed to be negotiated. New alliances needed to be formed. The galaxy had changed forever, and humanity had to decide what role it would play in the new order. The chief prosecutor was a woman named Dahai. She was small and precise, with a sharp mind and a sharper tongue. She had spent her entire career fighting for justice, and this was the case of her lifetime. Council Leader Vorn, she began. You are accused of murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and crimes against sentient life. The evidence is clear. You ordered the execution of Ambassador Taeho despite knowing he was innocent. You did this not because of any crime he committed, but because you wanted to send a message to humanity. You wanted to show us that we were worthless. You wanted to crush our spirit and keep us weak. Vorn stared at her with his 4 eyes. He did not deny anything. There was no point in denial now. The evidence was overwhelming. Video recordings, documents, testimony from his own officers. Everyone knew what he had done. I did what was necessary, Vorn said. His voice was quiet but unrepentant. Humans were becoming a threat. Your species grows too fast, learns too fast, adapts too fast. If we had not acted, you would have eventually challenged the Council's power. I was protecting galactic stability. By murdering an innocent man? By removing a symbol. Vorn straightened in his seat, trying to recover some dignity. Your ambassador represented everything that made humanity dangerous. His charm, his intelligence, his ability to make friends with other species. Killing him was supposed to break your confidence. It was supposed to remind you of your place. Nahai nodded slowly. And how did that work out for you? Vorn did not answer. He did not need to. The ruins of his empire answered for him. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Witness after witness came forward. Officers who had participated in the conspiracy. Diplomats who had warned against it. Victims of council oppression who had suffered for centuries under Malari rule. Each testimony added weight to the case against Vorn and his accomplices. Yuna was called to testify on the 15th day. She walked to the witness stand and took her oath. The cameras focused on her face. Billions of beings across the galaxy watched as the widow of the murdered ambassador prepared to speak. Please tell us about your husband, Dahai said gently. Yuna took a deep breath. Taeho was the kindest man I ever knew. He grew up poor in a small village in Korea. His parents were farmers. They taught him that all life has value, that every creature deserves respect. That peace is always better than war. She paused, gathering her thoughts. When he became ambassador, he truly believed he could make the galaxy a better place. He studied alien cultures. He learned alien languages. He tried to understand everyone he met, even people who treated him badly. He used to say that hatred comes from fear, and fear comes from ignorance. If we could just know each other, we could be friends. Her voice cracked slightly. He died believing that. He died trying to build bridges. And they killed him for it. The courtroom was silent. Vorn looked away. Even his hardened heart could not face the grief in Yuna's eyes. The council called my husband a spy, Yuna continued. They called him a criminal. But the real criminals are sitting in this courtroom. They murdered an innocent man because they were afraid. They were afraid that humans might be equal to them. They were afraid that their power might be challenged. They were so afraid that they destroyed themselves. She turned to look directly at Vorn. My husband believed in peace. He died for it. And because of his death, humanity learned something important. We learned that peace must be protected. We learned that kindness is not weakness. We learned that when we are pushed, we push back. You taught us that lesson, Council Leader. You should be proud." Una stepped down from the witness stand. The gallery erupted in whispers and murmurs. Dahai allowed a moment for the impact to settle, then continued with her closing arguments. The verdict came on the 22nd day. All 12 defendants were found guilty on all charges. The sentences varied based on individual participation, but Vorn received the harshest punishment: life imprisonment on a penal colony at the edge of human space. He would spend the rest of his long life watching humanity grow stronger, watching the order he had tried to protect crumble into history. After the trial, President Sunyi called a press conference. She stood before the cameras and spoke to the galaxy. "Today, justice has been served," she said. But this trial was never about revenge. It was about accountability. It was about showing the galaxy that actions have consequences. The old council believed it could do anything without punishment. They were wrong. She paused and looked at the screen with calm authority. Humanity has no interest in becoming a new empire. We do not want to rule the galaxy or dominate other species. We want what we have always wanted: peace, prosperity, and mutual respect. The war is over. Now the healing begins. In the following months, a new galactic order emerged. The council was dissolved. In its place, a new assembly was formed, called the Galactic Senate. Every species had equal representation. Decisions were made by vote, not by power. Humanity played a leading role, but they did not try to control everything. They remembered Tejo's vision of cooperation and worked to make it real. Many of the species that had been oppressed by the lies council flourished in the new system. The Volar, a small reptilian race that had been enslaved for centuries, gained their independence. The Namari, whose homeworld had been stripped of resources, received aid to rebuild. The galaxy was not perfect, but it was better than it had been. Admiral Sungho retired from military service. He had accomplished everything he set out to do. He spent his final years teaching at a military academy, sharing his knowledge with the next generation. When he died at the age of 87, he was buried with full honors. His gravestone read, "He defended his people." Commander Hannah continued to serve in the fleet. She rose through the ranks and eventually became an admiral herself. She led peacekeeping missions and exploration voyages. She discovered new worlds and made first contact with new species. She never forgot the war, but she did not let it define her. She looked forward to the future, not back at the past. Una returned to Earth after the trial. She lived quietly in Seoul with her daughter, Sumin. She did not want fame or recognition. She just wanted to raise her child and honor her husband's memory. Sumin grew up to be a diplomat, like her father. She joined the Galactic Senate and worked to strengthen relationships between species. She had her father's charm and her mother's determination. Everyone who met her saw echoes of Taiho in her smile. On the 10th anniversary of the war's end, a memorial was built in Geneva. It stood in the plaza outside the United Nations building, a simple structure of black stone. On one side were carved the names of every human who had died in the conflict. On the other side was a single message: we came in peace. When peace was broken, we fought for justice. May the galaxy remember. Una attended the dedication ceremony with Sumin. They stood together in the rain and looked at the memorial. Thousands of people surrounded them, paying their respects. "Do you think Dad would be proud of us?" Sumin asked quietly. Una thought about the question. She thought about Tejo's gentle smile and his unwavering optimism. She thought about how he always believed in the best of everyone. She thought about what he would say if he could see how far humanity had come. "Yes," she said finally. He would be proud. He always believed that humans could change the galaxy. He was right. Sumin nodded. She reached out and touched her father's name on the memorial. The stone was cold, but her heart was warm. Far away, on the penal colony where Vorn spent his final years, the old council leader sat in his cell and stared at the stars. He had lived for 200 years, and he remembered when the Malari had ruled everything. He remembered the power, the glory, the certainty that his species was superior. Now all of that was gone. The Malari were just another species in the galaxy, no more important than anyone else. Their empire had been built on cruelty, and it had fallen because of one moment of cruelty too many. Vorn had made many mistakes in his life, but the biggest mistake was the one he made on that day in the Great Hall. He thought that killing one human would make humanity weaker. Instead, it made them unstoppable. He died alone in his cell, unmourned and unremembered.